We get a lot of requests for information and questions about harvesting your grow bags. So in today's video, I'm going to be demonstrating one technique to harvesting your grow bag properly. It's always important to make sure your working area is sterile to avoid contamination. So before we started, I went ahead and wiped down my entire work area using 70% isopropyl alcohol and just some standard paper towels. And before we begin, we're going to do the same exact thing with our bag before we put it into our clean area. So you're going to want to go ahead and start with wiping off the bottom. That way the bottom is nice and clean. Now we can set it down and we can begin to get to work in cleaning the bag on the front. Avoid the patch in general with anything alcohol or any liquid in general. But make sure you do a nice thorough job along the sides here, and then moving your way towards the back to make sure your bag is nice and clean and free from particulates before we open it up to harvest these beautiful mushrooms. So now that the bag is clean, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that we're going to want to do is open the bag right below the seal line. The reason you want to do it right below the seal line is if your goal is to get multiple harvests out of this bag, we're going to want to reseal this bag after we harvest it, and we want to make sure that there's ample room for the mushrooms to grow. Now you'll notice that I'm doing this work in front of a flow hood. This is a 4-foot by 2-foot HEPA air flow hood that we actually have available online for sale at mushroomsupplies.com. This is a great tool even for the novice to have, as this creates a clean working area, and this filter is actually capable of filtering out 99.9% of all particulates out of the air. So although it's not necessary, this may be one of the first investments that you would want to make if you're looking to up your mycology game. So let's go ahead and get started. I went ahead and already sterilized my pair of scissors. I have a scalpel here that I'm going to use to trim the mushrooms later. And then I also have a few paper clips that I also cleaned that we will be using to secure the bag once it is done being harvested and we are getting ready to put it back into fruiting conditions for a second and third harvest. So let's go ahead and open the bag. When you're working in front of the flow hood, you want to understand that the cleanest air is the air that's closest to the flow hood. The dirtiest air is when you're moving away from it. You also want to make sure not to put your body parts or hands in between the bag and the HEPA air filter, because this actually creates a potential for contamination if you are not sterile and you have skin cells or anything that's on your body that's not supposed to be on there, that's not sterile. So let's go ahead and open it up. And I'm just going to cut right along the top here. And there we have it. Set this aside. There's no such thing as too much alcohol, so feel free to always use some isopropyl to make sure that you're absolutely clean. Now that the bag is open, our goal is to open the bag by folding it down one time. The reason I say one time is you don't want to continue to fold it, because then you have the inside of the bag touching the outside of the bag. But if you fold it over just one time, then you have the outside of the bag only touching the outside of the bag, and the inside of the bag is not going to get cross-contaminated with the outside of the bag. So just go ahead and take your time on doing this. It will take some getting used to if this is your first time. There is no rush to do this, so just make sure you do this correctly, even if it takes you a little bit longer. As we move down, we're now exposing your mushrooms, your fruit, and we're going to keep on going down until we get as close to the substrate level as possible. Now we have our beautiful mushrooms exposed. and it's time to begin to pull the fruits from the substrate. Now your objective, again, if your goal is to get multiple harvests out of this bag, you're going to want to make sure that you do your best not to disrupt the substrate. Meaning you don't want to damage the cake by going in there and just simply pulling all the fruits out and destroying the cake. The more gentle and the less disrupted the cake, the better the likelihood of good future harvests. So now that we have most of the fruits exposed, I'm going to go ahead and start pulling the fruit. And as you see here, I have a bin that I sterilized with isopropyl alcohol as well. This is where I'll be putting the fruit once we pull it out of the substrate. So to begin, all you want to do is simply reach down towards the base of the stem and gently rock the fruit back and forth to kind of loosen it until you can effectively twist it and the fruit pops out. I'm going to clean the substrate off in just a little bit, but for video's sake, I'm going to show you guys how to harvest this entire bag, and then we'll get into the trimming portion later. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to do this. Again, take your time. There is no rush to do this. The more careful you are in this process, the better your future harvests will be. Sometimes you have to wiggle them a little bit more, especially if you have fruits on the side like we do here. There you have it. There you go. And gently work your way around the entire cake. And I'm just gently pinching the base of the stem, rocking the mushroom until it loosens up a bit, and then twisting at the very end to release the mushrooms from the substrate. I recommend you always pull all the fruits, no matter what the size are. As you can see with this bag, the cap has opened up already. Generally, the best time to pull fruits is right when the veil breaks and before it drops spores. Here we go. Moving our way around the base here. The bigger fruits will be a little bit more challenging, but there you go. I'm going to remove these little fruits as well, so that we have a nice clean surface for the next harvest. Occasionally you will have some fruits growing on the side. This is something called side pinning that occasionally happens when the microclimate is ideal for mushrooms to grow. Now you'll notice that the side pinning is occurring basically right above where this rubber band is, or this micromultiplier is. And so I'm just trying to navigate around this, gently remove it from the substrate, and work my way around the bag. we go. Some of them will come out really easy, some will be a little bit more challenging, but practice makes permanent. We're almost done here. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that the cake is nice and clean. We do have one side pin here that went crazy down here, so I'm just going to go ahead and remove this one as well. And there we have it, our beautiful harvest. I'm going to set these aside just for now, just so I can show you guys how to close up the bag and prepare it for future harvests. Now simply all we're going to do is shimmy that bag back up. You notice that the inside of the bag did not touch the outside of the bag because of the way that we folded it up. And now we're at the top here. If you have a sealer, you can go ahead and reseal the bag, but what I find to work actually a little bit better is simply folding it over about a ½ an inch to an inch here and using 2 paper clips to secure the bag. The reason I like this technique is because the paper clips will do a good job of closing the bag to maintain the moisture that's in the bag that's necessary for the future harvest, for the fruits to get big. But it'll also get a little bit of an air pocket in there, or a little bit of an area in there where oxygen can enter the bag, which is absolutely crucial for good harvest. So there you have it. Your bag is now ready to go back into fruiting conditions for a second and third harvest.